This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
And a superb goal from Barrett. Oh, the keeper saves it, and there's McGregor. There's a goal. Paul McGregor.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. Robertson getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent as we come to you with the official news now that Sean Dyche is manager of Nottingham Forest Football Club with 30 games of the season left to play. I'm joined by Lee Clark. We cover the breaking news. Lee, first off, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Good stuff.
All recovered from the Postecoglou tenure. Well, kind of recovered. I'm trying to forget it ever happened, to be honest, and the season starts now.
Yes, I think that's a good thing to take from it as well. But I suppose first and foremost, what's your take on the whole Dyche appointment and hire? Obviously, I know Adam and Mason spoke about it yesterday, but good to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I've not heard their thoughts, so anything I do say that might be repeated, I guess, is just coincidental. I actually think it's probably the most realistic option we could get with the kind of current. I'll call it a mess because it is a bit of a mess, isn't it? Really, this season, the start of the season has been a mess. No one anticipated it was going to be this chaotic and this kind of circus-like, shall we say? So. Yeah, I think Dyche is probably I would have loved Marco Silva. I'd still love Marco Silva, but I think paying 15 million when you've just paid another manager off for the second time this season, with PSR loitering in the background after a hefty summer of spending, was always going to be. Marinakis is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't in that situation, because we've said before with other stuff, kind of take the hit and worry about what comes later on. But if he does that, people are going to criticise him anyway. So, I think the fact that Dyche was available made it obviously an easy one to do. But I mean, listening to some people, you'd think we'd just appointed someone from not Senior League Division 3, wouldn't you? I mean, some of the stuff I've read and bits and pieces, I just don't know who people were expecting, to be honest.
No, it's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, my overriding thought is just relief, but I think that's more relief because Ange has gone more than anything else. It's an interesting one, isn't it? And obviously, I appreciate you saying about Silva as well. I think Silva would have been the first choice of many people, obviously myself included. Obviously, we spoke about it on the pod as well. But the chance to get Silva was when Nuno first went. I think if you drop the money then, most of what's been forked out to get Ange in and his staff and B, sack them all off could have gone towards that. And even the Nuno compensation stuff, most of that's been offset because he's found the work at West Ham within a couple of weeks after getting the chop at Forest. So that it feels after that boat was missed, and I agree with you. This is probably the best case scenario, really, given what's around. Obviously, it was interesting the Athletic saying that Mancini was the favoured choice going into Saturday, which is obviously pushed by Edu Gaspar, but Dyche has come through, it seems, and also brought with him Ian Wone, Steve Stone, Billy Mercer, and Tony Loughlin with him at the City Grounds. They've got his full staff there. I believe all of them have had some connection with Forest as well. I think Billy Mercer, the goalkeeping coach, came on loan, never played for Forest. Loughlin played twice in the late 80s, I think, and obviously Wone and Stone, as we all know, icons in the 90s. That sort of knows a club feel, I suppose, Lee. Do you think, given all the turbulence of the last few weeks and whatever else, do you think we maybe needed an appointment like that to sort of lift the mood a bit, or do you think that's sort of just by the by?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think you look at people are kind of obviously you've got to do it because he is a football manager, and you look at the styles of play. And I think the statement that the club have released this morning, it kind of alludes to the fact that that's as close as we'll get as an apology from Marinakis for me. Yes. I think that's him basically turning around and saying, I got it wrong. Let's go back to what we were good at under Nuno with all the defensive structure and all this, that and the other. I don't really understand where this notion's come from that he's ultra defensive as a manager. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday in our group chat. The year when they were fighting with us to stay up, they went to Brighton and won 5-1. I mean, that's not an ultra defensive manager. I appreciate as well that that's a long time ago, and there was some. I'm sure there's some counter arguments for drab games where they've not produced chances and stuff like that. But he's got the best squad he's ever managed here. So the tools are there for him. It's not like he's coming into a situation where the biggest issue for him is that the confidence at the minute is on the floor. But this is where, in theory, he should be kind of coming into his element, really. I think this is where he'll earn his coin. And I don't think it'll be too difficult for him to kind of get a tune out of some of the players that weren't performing under the previous manager. But yeah, I don't... I've kind of gone on. I can't remember what your question was now. Have I answered your question there?
Kind of. It's about the sort of like, obviously Wodenstone and the others all having that sort of Forest connection. Yeah. I
think that it was important. I've always said before, even when way before we started doing this podcast, I've always said that if you can get people that understand the kind of, not that go whacking on about winning European Cups and stuff like that. You don't want people there for the sake of being there, but people who can understand just what the fans are feeling, basically. If it's, we've just come from a manager who, it's almost like he probably thinks after games, why on earth are they booing me? I've just won the Europa League with Tottenham, and I finished fifth and I didn't have Harry Kane, and he keeps banging on about these other stuff about him and this, that, and the other. Whereas I think I'm expecting a lot more we and us under Dyche than me. So yeah, I think just someone that the fans can relate to will be a big help. And obviously not just Dyche, but we've got Wodenstone, and I confess I didn't know the other two guys were previous Forest players. But if you're saying one didn't play and one played twice in the late 80s, then I know I look old, but I'm maybe not quite that old.
No, I mean, I obviously I've seen that's one of the things people have latched onto. I must admit there is an element of it that does kind of feel right in a weird way. I don't know. It's one of those unexplainable things about football, and that you can just, it's just like feel rather than logic or anything like that. But obviously applying some logic to it, I think what impresses me most about Dyche is that, and without wanting to go all sort of Brentford and data sheets and God knows what else, but if you look at Everton for the 23-24 season, which obviously saw them, have two different point deductions at various points of the season, and honestly the results are quite startling. So their XG that season was, I think, basically 61 goals. For context, we've not managed that since we've been promoted. Even last season, we were like 52, I think it was, with Nuno. So, that's obviously that's with Beto and, Jack Harrison playing for you. So in theory, if you give him good players... as well. Well, sorry?
Calvert-Lewin as well, I suppose.
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin as well.
Very hit and miss.
As we've seen, apart from Ancelotti, who's one of the best managers of all time, no one's got any form of tune out of him. So... I actually think there is something to potentially work with there. I don't believe it would just be... I don't think it'd be as bad as people expect it to be. Equally, we are in somewhat of a strange situation in that no one has really won from this scenario, have they? I mean, as I sort of tweeted earlier, like, Nuno's gone to West Ham with a weaker squad. He's got no credit in the bank with their fans. Obviously, lost again last night. Their fans are already calling for his heads, so there's no patience. Couldn't kick on at Forest and couldn't build on what he's done. We've had to endure Ange Postecoglou, the factually worst manager in our club's history. He now has a failure on his CV as well for having a 0% win ratio at a club for someone who always wins everywhere, mate. And Marinakis also has a gigantic failure on his CV as well, because he's the one that's rocked the boat and hired him. So, apart from Dyche, no one's really won from this scenario, have they?
No, not at all. I mean, I just want to put on record as well. I actually think Ange Postecoglou is the worst bloke that's ever managed us as well. It's very rare. I always kind of try and just judge it on it's just a football manager at the end of the day. But as a bloke, I couldn't warm to him. I just thought I really thought he'd changed my perception. I tried to get on board with him from the early stages, but I think from the moment we conceded 3 in the second half to a championship side, who were kind of mid-table, I think. And all he spoke about afterwards was kind of, it'll take time, and this is what I did elsewhere. I was just like, it was the bit about Newcastle as well. When you can remember when we played Newcastle, and I get that it was a company that kind of fish for little clips and stuff like that they can get clout from on social media. But when he said to the reporter, "Dare I say your parents gave up on you at some point?" What a rubbish bloke! That's just not. It's just not for me. That's not this football club. And again, that's not me being all misty-eyed about what this football club should represent. I just think he is comfortably the worst bloke that's ever worked as a manager for us. So yeah, I'm just pleased it's all sorted, nice. Well, as early as it can be, I guess. I think we probably didn't do it yesterday with the obviously the sad news about
Yes.
Stuart Pearce's son. I think it probably was done. Wouldn't surprise me if there was maybe someone on the training ground from Dyche's camp yesterday. But yeah, just pleased it's kind of happened before the Porto game.
Honestly, I wish it was me that was in that press conference at that moment in time. I said, well, yeah, but my parents also would have got plumbers in to do jobs, and they did a terrible job. They'd have been sacked and found replaced pretty quickly. So why are you still here? But alas. Anyway, we've been joined by Reece Lane, who is on the road somewhere, I believe. Reece, how are you?
I am parked up. I'm not driving down the road. I think we should put that out as a disclaimer. You've got me for a 5-minute cameo because I'm in basic West London at the minute. I'm about to set off to Crawley next. So you've got a 5-minute cameo from me.
Excellent stuff. What's your take on the whole situation with Dyche? Are you happy with the appointment? Are you sort of it sort of sums up where we are at this moment in time as a club? How are you sort of feeling about it?
Well, I am going to start by disagreeing with Lee, and I think I'll take this forever and a day with Forest, but Gary Megson's still the worst for me. But we don't need to debate that. That's for another podcast. Look, I think if we would have replaced Nuno with Sean Dyche, I think there would have been a lot more dissenting voices. But, we're now we're 8 games on in all competitions. There is little gaps starting to form now as well. You know what I mean? I know it's still early days, but there is little gaps starting to form. If we're looking like we're like 7 points off the top half already, we're already a win to get ourselves out of the relegation zone, for example. So I understand why the club's gone down this route, because they have, the owner unfortunately has made a mistake in picking Gange. But I understand why now we've kind of gone down this route. But, as we've spoke about on pods before, like, Dyche has never really had the opportunity with, I'd say, a stable / big spending club, which is what we are in Premier League terms. The investment what went in the summer, so it gives him the opportunity to kind of disprove that. Now, I'm not expecting him to start playing Ange ball. He is going to be pragmatic still, but it is going to be similar to Nuno in the sense that the first solid foundations is the defence, which suits us as seen by last season, really. Because we haven't kept a clean sheet now in a long, long time. And to be fair, that did start under Nuno, but with obviously the injuries and running out of gas last season, it kind of, waned, didn't it, really? But we're just going to have to see how it goes, mate. I think we are thinking a little bit short term at the minute because we are in this rut and we need some results. Long term is where I think obviously fans are a bit cautious, and I think 18 months kind of suits everybody, really, personally. So we'll just have to see how it goes, mate. I'm sure there'll be a lift straight away on Thursday night. I mean, his first Premier League game, he couldn't have picked a worse one, because I'm sure he'll know our record at Bournemouth. But it would be typical Forest, wouldn't it, to kind of go there and get something as such as football. But yeah, I'm not downbeat on it, but I'm also not kind of like jumping for the hills. But I'm just kind of relieved that this experiment with Ange is over and we can kind of get back to basics, which was being solid. And he has got attacking talent in this squad, and young attacking talent as well. So hopefully he can work with a mate, and we can start seeing some upturns in performances starting Thursday. And obviously the main thing is results.
Definitely, yeah. No, I mean, I think I'd be any surprised how the Porto game was now sold out since Ange's dismissal. But I can't wait for tomorrow. I'm out Thursday. Sorry, it's going to be great. I mean, for him as well. I mean, your first game's Porto at home.
Yeah,
I mean,
not bad, is it?
you probably couldn't pick a sort of like a bigger sort of task to come into, really. But I mean, what sort of players, Reece? Obviously, while we've got you very quickly before you go, what players are you sort of looking at and thinking they'll be happy that Dyche is in or think they have a chance to perform there. I'm assuming the defenders, especially. But what sort of who do you think sort of had an eye on this and thought, yeah, okay, this is good news for me?
Well, I'd like to think, mate, all of them, because they've all been below par for Sean Dyche. Some have not done bad, I'd say, but they've not been at the levels that they can play. Like I'm just thinking, like Nico Williams is always pretty consistent, but he still can be better than what he has been recently, even though he's been all right. You know what I mean? Because like last season, he was brilliant, for example. So everyone's fell below the levels what they're capable of. So I'm hoping all of them. In terms of, obviously, if you're going to ask me to pick out kind of names, I think you'd straight away swing to the 4 who got left off the bench on Saturday. I mean, they'd have been jumping for the hills. And obviously, probably players who, haven't played as much, I'd say. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. The one that springs to mind straight away, and it's probably an easy throwaway one, is Ryan Yates, because, there'll be a bit of a stereotype that he would be a very much Sean Dyche type of player. Now, that remains to be seen. But obviously, he's not played as much under Ange, only a couple of starts. But obviously, in my opinion, we've still got centre mids ahead of him. But like I said, everybody, mate, because again, they've just not played to the level they have been. Nobody. Chris Wood's obviously the other one I think would stick out, the obvious one, because he's worked with him before. He probably prefers playing in a team with more Dyche's kind of football. So, look, I'm hoping to see an upturn in performance straight away, personally, on Thursday night, because the crowd will be up for it, mate. Obviously, Porto coming to town, they're a big European club. Former European champions. They're going to obviously bring a good support because, like I said, they're a big club. The ground, like you just said, Christian, the ground's now sold out. So the atmosphere will be there from the off, like it was against Midtjylland as well. Let's not forget about that. But the intensity and the performance of the players will carry on that atmosphere throughout the game, as it did first half on Saturday. So I actually think we're in for a bit of a, I'm not going to say barn summer, but actually a bit of a interesting game on Thursday, because obviously Porto are in really good form. I know it's the Portuguese league and there's probably 3 teams in that league, 4 if you want to count Braga. But I think they've only conceded 2 goals this season in all competitions, or 2 or 3. But then you look at their centre-back pair, which is Bednarek, who went down last season, and Kivior, who couldn't get a kick at Arsenal and looked out of sorts when he was in the Premier League. So they're also there to be got at. So it'll be an exciting game, and I'm the exact same as you, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing for it.
Great stuff. Just before you go, we'll let you go and see the mighty joys of Crawley. What's your score prediction for Thursday?
1-0 to Forest.
Great stuff. All right, cheers, Reece.
Thanks. Take care, guys. See you later.
Okay, drive safe. So yeah, many thanks to Reece. Lee, just very quickly before we look at Porto and whatever else, do you have any players in your mind that you think will sort of go yeah, class? Okay, Dyche in.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the defenders, I think they'll be bang up for it, because they can go back to doing what they should be good at. I mean, I've not been on a pod since, but seeing Milenkovic marauding down the right wing on Saturday was just, yeah, crazy. So, yeah, I think the defenders, I'd expect to see a very kind of similar approach to what we got under Nuno, maybe with some tweaks. Like Reece has just alluded to as well, the obvious one is Ryan Yates. Yeah, it certainly wouldn't surprise me I think tomorrow night, in normal circumstances, I'd say that he won't make too many changes tomorrow night because he's not going to have many training sessions with them. But there's no way he's picking that team that Ange picked on Saturday, is he?
No way.
So he's going to go back to something similar to what we kind of all anticipated was our strongest 11, I think. It wouldn't surprise me if he closed the midfield up and went 4-3-3 and sacked off the number 10. I'm intrigued to see Gibbs White under him, to be honest, because I think we can all agree that he's not been the player that we know he can be this season. If he does close the midfield up and he thinks that's the way to kind of start getting us results, where does that leave him? I think that's probably the interest. I think that's the intriguing subplot, but I'm not sure if that really answers your question if there's any players. I tend to agree with Reece. I think they'll all probably improve by 20-30%. And hopefully that means we can start getting the results that we kind of anticipated we'd get at the start of the season.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, just one more thing, very briefly, before we obviously look ahead to Porto. I mean, I spoke to well, he's an Everton fan. Obviously, very contrasting things for Everton fan, but we'll stick with the positives. Obviously, friend of the pod, Jay from Paddock Blues podcast, was not so complimentary about Dyche, but I spoke to my mate Dan as well, and he said, you know, good man, the only man who could have done -8 season. Will get you back to basics. Similar to how Nuno had you. Obviously, beat Newcastle, beat Liverpool 2-0. That was incredible. I think it's a thing that's stand out for me. We used to win a game, and in Dyche's mind, it was always, you haven't done anything yet, on to the next one. We beat Brighton 5-1, beat Bournemouth to stay up without a striker. He knows what he's doing. Brownlee Moore is so good, but without Dyche, it would never have got built. I think that's a pretty glowing effort, I think. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that kind of highlights what we've both said. We need some of that unity. We need some of that, someone who's talking about the team and the benefits of the team rather than the benefits of... He'll be under no illusions that if he doesn't get this right, then his prospects of another Premier League job are going to be limited to clubs that, there's 10 games left and there's 6 points adrift. If he does a good job with this job, with a squad that's already there, in his mind, he'll never say it because that's not what sort of bloke he is. But in his mind, he'll be thinking, right, this is a chance for us. If we can get this right, maybe we can look to get sort of another project in the future. So it's not last chance saloon for Sean Dyche as a manager, but it's certainly a big opportunity for him, I think.
Massive one. Yeah, I agree with that. Fingers crossed it can all come together. Who knows? We'll be manifesting him lifting that awkward-looking trophy in May, and Istanbul, and where's the final's been held. But anyway, next step onto that is we do have Porto on Thursdays, we've touched upon, and earlier today, Adam spoke to a Porto fan to sort of get his sort of thoughts and things on proceedings.
This podcast is interrupted by our sponsors, Trentside Threads. You can go to trentsidethreads.co.uk and get yourselves a t-shirt with Ola Aina and a Ribena juice box on it, just like the one in the video you can see. Do go check them out. You can get 10% off using our code RSOT. That's RSOTT. Links in the description below to their website, trentsidethreads.co.uk. Go check them out now. Thank you for sponsoring this video. Hello, thank you for joining us for this opposition view during our podcast preview of the Porto game. Delighted to be joined by Matt from an English view on Porto. Matt, how are you first of all?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this occasion. This has been the fixture I've been looking at since the draw came out.
Why is that? Because I'm interested to know why a lad who supports is it Bristol Rovers as well or Bristol City?
Bristol Rovers, and I did see your opposition preview with the Bristol City Sevilla Real Betis fan.
Yeah.
So yeah,
interesting. So I'm interested to know why are you a Porto fan as well? First of all, Matt.
So me supporting Porto came over the course of several years. So first, it started from 2017, where I found myself loving the city, and plus the blue and white connections does also help. And during that time as well, I did find myself having a soft spot for Porto. So the signs were coming until eventually within this decade where I decided this was the one of the clubs for me. So and probably I started to be a very hardcore fan in 2023.
Fair enough. That's cool. That's an interesting one.
No, 2022. Sorry.
I'm assuming you're saying that you enjoy the city means you've obviously been over there and gone to the ground, which looks like a big lizard or whatever it is from the outside of it. I mean, it's not a very far journey for yourself to probably travel up from, I'm assuming, Bristol. So to get to Nottingham as a support. I mean, what's that going to be like in that away end coming to the City ground? And one of my colleagues, Christian, he's asked how often are they going to be doing the Porto chant as well. He wanted to
know. I would expect per start in the chant, it might be maybe 2 or 3 times per half.
right.
But to also answer the other part of your question, we were sold somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 tickets on the away end, and also thankfully there hasn't been as high of a demand from the Portistas back in Porto to come onto this game, and thankfully I've been able to have extra insight through FC Porto in London, because I happened to be there for the last game before the international break. But yeah, I would probably expect not it's possibly not a sellout, but possibly like a mix between Portuguese-based Porto fans and fans from England, and maybe even other parts of Britain or Ireland. Maybe you could even say France, but we'll see.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, nice mix in there. Let's talk about Porto and let's get into your manager actually, because he's been quite an interesting topic to talk to. Francesco Farioli, Italian up and coming manager, was at Ajax last season, and they parted ways. What's he been like since the start of the season? Because obviously you've started unbeaten, won 7 games, drew 1 with Benfica recently in the Premier League, top the league there. You've won the first 2 games in Europa League against Salzburg and Red Star. So very, very good start to his managerial career at Porto.
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic, both on the field, off the field. He seems to have the attack defense balance right. So it's defensively whilst being dangerous in the attack, and a definite upgrade from what we had before, which in the last, well, of course, about 7 years around the time that I was getting into supporting Porto, Porto had Sergio Conceição, who had been there for 7 years, won 4 titles in that period of time. The last season did end quite rocky, but did win a cup. And for last season, his second in command took over, where he did well in most of the domestic games, apart from the big games and the ending. And then after that, at bad end, Martin Selmy came in, which he got off to an all right start. He had this ideology of playing a back three, which started pretty well and seemed to fit Mora and João Mario, who we had at the time as the wing backs. But eventually, there came a point where form was bad. He wasn't picking the best players that were available, and that consequences showed in the Club World Cup, especially against Inter Miami and Al Ahly. And then when Farioli came in, he was someone that definitely, as well as the signings and the business that Porto had done, Farioli himself, it was an upgrade in tactics, certainly a better man manager, and I also think that Villas-Boas does see himself in Farioli, former Chelsea and Tottenham manager, and even Porto as well. He got into management having not been a player, and Farioli's similar type. But overall, he's been a fantastic addition, and I'm looking forward to see what else he cooks up this for the remainder of the season.
I mean, what's his style of play, Matt? Because myself included, but not. I'd be very surprised if there's any Forest fans watching Portuguese football week in, week out. So what can Forest expect in terms of strengths and weaknesses from a Farioli team?
He normally plays a 4-3-3. The balance of that midfield tends to be, you've got a defensive midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and another CM that does a bit of both. He's also helped Porto be dangerous at set pieces, where having what did a bit of looking up from watching a bit of last night's Sky Sports analysis on Forest, I have seen that recently Nottingham Forest have been in defending set pieces has been in a weak point. So that's something that Porto could definitely look to take advantage of. But definitely in the games that Porto are expected to win, there's a lot of high intensity. Even the striker does pressing. There's even I'm sure you'll ask about the players to look out for in a bit later, but there's one in particular. We was 4-0 up at I think it was Rio Ave, and one of our regular players was still putting it in the sprinting, despite there being 2 Europa League games in the Thursdays before and after. So I would, but maybe a bit more pragmatic compared to what it usually is, because this is on paper our hardest away fixture, if not hardest fixture of the Europa League. But certainly 4-3-3 with intensity, dangerous at set pieces, and you can. It's normally attacking, but room for or a solid defensive setup too.
Yeah, there's some obviously most like notable names in there. I think the two centre halves are very well known to English supporters in Jan Bednarek and Kivio. I mean, you've got Pepe there. You got Borja Sainz, who played at Norwich for a brief spell. Gabri Vega, who was at Celta Vigo before he went to Saudi and come to Porto. Actually, probably reinvent himself, I guess, back in Europe. But obviously, the big player to look out for is the striker in Samu Omarodian. Is that how you say it? I know it's different. I think he's changed it as well to whatever, if it's his like mum or dad's name. I'm not actually sure, but he's someone to look out for. Have I missed anyone in those there, Matt? Or are they all?
Yeah, there's well, firstly, I think you pretty much got the name pronunciation correct. Although we at Porto usually just call him Samu, and
Yeah,
he even has Samu on the back of his shirt. But other players to look out for. One has been, in fact, the player on my shirt, Victor Froholt. Was signed from Copenhagen during the transfer window. Even before he came here, he had some. Victor Froholt, Danish midfielder, had viability at performing in the Champions League for Copenhagen. This year, he's been doing well for Denmark, and in the Porto side of things, he's transform that midfield, and he walks into any of the midfield that Porto have had in this decade. He probably, if he's got the freedom, when there's if there's a game where Porto do have the license to be more attacking, he connects the both sides of the pitch excellently. He was that player I was referring to who ran a lot, even and during 4-0 up against Rio Ave in the 90-minute mark. His passing's fantastic. He can also provide a good defensive role as well. And another one to look out for would be Alberto Costa, the right back, arguably the best signing, one of the best signings of the window, because the past few years, Porto at right back have had average to poor players, and so that's one side of why this was such a great signing, and the other being the business we had for it as well. João Mario, who I suppose a bit like a right-sided Marcus Alonso. He went to Juventus on a swap-up deal, and Juventus fans weren't happy with losing Alberto Costa. They felt he was a bright prospect, and Porto managed to get him. And I'd argue that João Mario was part of the reason Porto conceded that goal against Arsenal at the Emirates a few years ago. So among the names you mentioned, Froho, Alberto Costa, and also I won't leave out Diogo Costa too, who the goalkeeper, the captain, has been here for 7 years. In the Euros, he saved 3 penalties against Slovenia in the penalty shootout. I wouldn't quite say he's at his prime, but he's definite. But the last 2 seasons, he's been going back in the right direction. He's definitely had a good season this season. Only 1 goal conceded in all competitions.
I mean, that's very impressive. I mean, just to touch on Alberto Costa, because you talked about him quite highly. What sort of fullback is he then? Is he someone that gets forward quite a lot, or is he quite just aggressive in his defensive work? What separates him as a good signing from the best signing of the window, as you put it?
What he can provide, attackingly, is one. And this squad, particularly including him, showed the viability that they can be a top competitive side, or even just a competitive side against teams from the top 4 leagues in Europe. Was against Sporting CP, where 2 standout moments. One being his recovery, defending again during a late counter attack in the first half. First, he disrupted. I think it might have been Luis Suarez, that Colombian striker at Sporting CP, from having an ideal shot, had to pass it wide, and then he blocked the arming shot. And then in the second half, he provided an assist to Luke de Jong, who won't be fit for this game, but he's also fast as well, so that helps. But I would say the main parts would be how he can contribute in the attacks, and also his recoveries as well. And last season, Juventus were playing in a 3 at the back, so when he was playing, he was a rotational player, but he was playing as a wing back, so he's no stranger to getting up and down that right side.
Yeah, that's fair. Just your thoughts, Matt, on Forest, and obviously the chaos that has happened in several weeks. I know you dropped in one of our live streams, and we still had Ange Postecoglou. Now we're on our 3rd manager of the season in 6 weeks, which is absolutely bonkers for any football club, never mind a professional one. So, what's your take on Sean Dyche being the manager there at Forest, and does that worry you a little bit going into Thursday? Because obviously, I think with his connection to Nottingham and then all the coaching staff he's brought in, who are like majority of all, I think they're all ex-Forest. Actually, it kind of lifts our spirits quite a lot. Our Twitter timeline's a bit more positive than negative, I'd say. So I think it could be quite a buoyant atmosphere at the City Ground on Thursday.
Well, certainly Sean Dyche is a good, solid appointment. And the fact that he and some of his coaching staff, if not all of them, have had history at the club, also does help and bring some extra chemistry. I will expect that with him, Forest are going to be not as easy to break down. Though if we're lucky, he might not get to fix everything in time for that for Thursday game. So honestly, this could be the best time to make the most of Forest's frailties before Sean Dyche may or may not have fixed things up.
Yeah. Any players that you're worried about, or not really? Because Forest have been a bit at 6s and 7s recently.
Oh, definitely Elliot Anderson. I love the guy. He was before he became a big name, I got to see him play on loan at Bristol Rovers. Last time they got promoted from League Two, he was a difference maker that could play in defensive midfield, attacking midfield, and then eventually went to the left side once one of our other big players from that season came back from injury. And of course, he went on to score the goal that helped took Bristol Rovers up that season. And so I've already had a taster of how great he is, and I've enjoyed watching him when I played for a team he supported. He's made the step up this season, and doing well at Nottingham Forest, and I've seen him at England, particularly against Serbia, where he was pulling the strings in that game, and I think he's by now still claiming that number 6 shirt in the England team, and I also can't ignore Morgan Gibbs-White as well. Experienced Premier League player who, whenever I have seen him play for England, he's put a good shift. So Anderson and Gibbs-White are the main ones for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Matt, thank you very much for your insight on Porto, and I think Forest fans will be really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, I can't go; I'll be away, but I'll be watching it from afar. So hopefully, you have a good trip up to Nottingham and enjoy the City Ground for a little bit before hopefully we actually finally win a game of football, because that's what we just need. But where can people check out the podcasts that you do?
It's on YouTube at an English View on Porto down below. We've been running for around 1 year now. I started this channel last year. About 1 or 2 months before I had a spike in Porto followers after I'd posted a picture of my Porto England flag, and when putting out a poll to see if there was interest for me to do it, I got got more yeses, so I set this up. And if the subscriber count seems that low, is because I've only been running this for a year, and depending on when this is out, myself and Adam will be doing a preview on the channel, on my channel, and you can also find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at MatsAttack9. My new year resolution in advance will be to be more active on Blue Sky, and I have a general channel on YouTube as well, the Mats channel. So on those four, or them four, as we say here in Bristol, is where you can find more of me.
Bro, thank you very much, Matt, and take care. And I'll throw it back to Christian and Lee.
Great stuff. Cheers to Adam and for I'm coming on as well. Lee, how are you feeling ahead of the game? Because obviously now it does feel there's a bit of a lift going into the fixture now. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's the pick of the bunch, certainly of the home games. Yeah, they're in good form, but I don't want this to come and bite me. They're clearly a good side. They've got good pedigree in Europe, and they're clearly playing well. But they're playing well against players who, in theory, are inferior to ours. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think the fact that we've changed the manager gives us every chance of getting a positive result. And obviously, because the first two haven't gone our way, we need a positive result. We need at bare minimum a point, just another point to keep us ticking. We could do with 3. I mean, if you said kind of 4 points from the first 3 games, you'd say absolute minimum. So it wouldn't be a lost cause if we had 1 point from 3 games, but it'd certainly make things very difficult. You'd probably be looking at all 5 remaining games thinking you've got to win them all. So I think it'll be a good game. I'm not sure I'm willing to quite go as confident as Reece and predict a clean sheet just yet. I think Dyche is good in that sense, but I'm not sure he's that good. So yeah, do you want a prediction now?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for prediction.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for a win. I won't predict a negative result. I think it'll be a win, but I think it'll be probably 2-1 instead.
Yeah, so you want to take that? I mean, I'm just
I really hope with the atmosphere how it's going to be. I would imagine now we've got a new manager and it's someone like Dyche and Woan and Stone. I just hope we can score early because I think the potential there then is massive to kind of kick on. And it's not since the first day. I suppose we've not really seen what we're like on home soil when we've scored first. So yeah, fingers crossed we can get that early goal.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm having a look for their record now. I mean, like Reece alluded to, I mean, some of the teams they've been beaten, like Casapia, Gil Vicente, Arauca. Obviously, in Europe, they beat Salzburg away. That's probably a good result. But as we've seen, we've actually got a tougher Austrian team going by Graz, obviously reigning champions. And they beat, is it Crvena Zvezda? I think the Serbian team, I believe they are, 2-1. They drew a Benfica 0-0. They scraped past Sporting 2-1. Actually, 2 goals in 4 minutes, sort of did that for them. Luke de Jong's up front for Porto, interestingly. That's a throwback name.
How old's he?
He must be like 34, 35, surely. Yeah. He was at Newcastle, weren't he? Yeah.
He was about 30 at Newcastle.
Yeah. Did he score against Sevilla in the Europa League final as well, I believe? If I remember right.
Yeah, something,
yeah. Full Sevilla, sorry. But yeah, I mean, look, I still think we've got a good chance. We have got a good chance. I mean, interestingly, I'm just having a look at obviously their best rated player this season is their goalkeeper. So I don't know what that sort of infers. Maybe they've been lucky. Who knows? I know obviously that Samu Agihawa that Chelsea wanted. He does look quite a handy prospect up front as well. Borja signs as well. Player that some people might well know, but. Yeah, I'm going to be optimistic. I reckon, again, I don't think it'll be a clean sheet, but I've just got this feeling we're just going to somehow scam a win. It'll be like 2-1 for us or something. We'll have Dyche giving it large in front of A-Block at the end of the game. It'll all feel right and fuzzy and warm again. That's what I'm going to go for. So I'm going to be optimistic. And fingers and toes crossed that can indeed be the case. But yeah, I mean, like you said, pick of the fixtures, massive European club, really. A lot of pedigree there, twice European champions. This was definitely the pick of the bunch, the home ties. This was a game we sort of wanted when we sort of got into, Europa League. It was a tie like this. So let's absolutely hope we make the most of it with Sean Dyche's army. Anyway, thank you to everyone who is tuned in for this one. Also, again, cheers to Lee and Reece as well for hopping on as well. Adam and the Porto fan as well too. And we'll have a review of some description, I'm sure, after the game. And then look ahead to Bournemouth as well this weekend. So, yeah. Enjoy your Angelus a couple of days before match day and come on, you Reds.